So today we're going to be making some crusty bread. You can see the recipe here. It's just going to be a loaf of crusty bread. And Angelina is going to start by measuring out 1 3/4 cup of hot water. And then we're going to add the yeast to it. You want the water as hot as you can get it, and this water is pretty hot. So we're going to now add a teaspoon of the yeast. Now, if you have the packaged yeast that you buy in the store, you would only put 1 in. Since I don't use that, I use different yeast. I use the loose leaf or loose yeast, and 1 teaspoon basically is the same as a package. So Angelina is going to measure a teaspoon of the yeast and put it in the cup with the hot water. And she's going to add a teaspoon of sugar to that also. That helps the yeast bubble. So as soon as she does that, she's going to stir it up a little bit. Not vigorously, but stir it up. And then we're going to put it aside and let it bubble and get ready. So while we're waiting on that, she's going to take and measure some of the other ingredients into this larger bowl. So she's going to measure in about 4.5 cups of flour. Even off that cup so you don't get more than you need. And you notice she doesn't pack the flour down. You don't want to pack the flour down in the cup because it'll just make it too much. When you pack flour down, it makes a larger quantity than what you want. So you just put it in gently, level it off, and then measure it the way you want. So she's got 3 cups now, going into 4. And then to this flour, when she gets the 4 cups in there, she's going to add a tablespoon of salt. Make sure it's kind of level across the top. She'll add that. And she's going to stir it together a little bit to kind of blend it. Okay, how's our yeast doing? Is it getting a little bubbly? It's getting there. We're going to let it sit for a few more minutes, and then we'll come back and add it to the flour. Okay, now you can see it's starting to bubble up, the yeast is. So this is a good time. We're going to add it to the flour mixture and stir it up really well. That's it. She's pouring it nice and gently so it doesn't splatter all over the place, which is exactly what we want. So now she's going to mix it up, and depending on the consistency of the dough, we may have to add more flour. But we'll see as we go through. Whenever you're making bread, the amount for flour is usually an approximate amount. It's not always the correct amount. You might need more, you might need less, but you adjust as you go through. You can see it's starting to mix together pretty well. And sometimes it's easier to just use your hands to just kind of mix it together too. But it depends on what you feel you want to do. You can also put this into a mixing bowl and have a mixer if you have a mixer and use that. But again, it's all in preference. As soon as she gets this mixed up a little bit, we're going to put it on the floured surface, and she's going to knead it. So let's get the floured surface over here. Okay, so here's our floured surface, and Angie's going to put the dough on the floured surface, and she's going to knead it. It has to be kneaded. That's going to make everything work together, because if you don't have it kneaded well, everything isn't real mixed. and it also helps get some air in and air out and makes it so that it can rise properly. So you can see she's folding it over and pushing away, folding it over and pushing, and that's how you knead. Okay, so she's going to knead the dough for a few more strokes, and then we're going to put it into a bowl to let it rise. Now you don't want to use a plastic bowl to let it rise in because plastic doesn't conduct the outside temperature. You need a glass bowl to do that with. And then you also want to kind of lightly grease the bowl with maybe Pam or another spray. I use avocado or Pam, and you just lightly spray the inside of the bowl. There you go. And then she's going to put the dough in there, and then after she puts it in there, she's going to turn it over so that both sides will be covered with a little bit of the grease. Okay, now we're going to cover that bowl with a towel, and we're going to put it into a warm place, not a hot place, but just room temperature where we're going to let it rise. So you can see where the dough looks right now. See how the dough is sitting in here? It's not real up top to the top. So now we're going to let it rise for about an hour or so. Okay, so now the bread has sat and risen, and we'll show you what it looks like now. Oh yeah, see how much it's risen? It's almost filled the bowl, so you can tell it's done its duty. So now we're going to take it out of the bowl. We're going to punch it down and then put it on the floured board, and we're going to knead it again. Not as long this time because it's just a matter of, punching it down and getting it ready to rise again. So Angelina's going to knead it some more. And then she's going to shape it into like a ball. We're going to put it in a round pan, but first she's going to take and put a touch of spray in the pan, and then she's going to put some cornmeal in it. But just a touch of cornmeal. Not much. Like maybe a very small handful of cornmeal, and that gives the bread a nice crust on the bottom. Okay, so now she's going to take the bread and put it in the cornmeal. And we're going to let it sit there. Now we're going to put it again aside for about an hour or so and let it rise again before we put it in the oven. So now we wait. Okay, so now it has risen. We're going to show you how much it's risen. See how much bigger it is and how it fills the pan? Okay, now what we need to do is take and cut some slices in it, just to kind of cut the top a little bit. So we're going to do like 2 each way, and then we're going to put it in the oven, which we've already preheated to 425, and it's going to cook in the oven for approximately 45 to 50 minutes. Okay, so here we go. We're going to put it in the oven. Okay, and there you can see we have it set for 425, and we're going to set the timer for 50 minutes. Okay, and when it's done, we'll show you our finished bread. So our timer went off, and here's our bread. We're going to take it out of the oven carefully with hot pads because everything is hot. And we're going to put it on the counter to cool down. There we go. I'll turn the oven off. And here's our bread. taster. She's going to put a little bit of butter on it. And you could also put honey on it if you'd like, or jelly, whatever's, or even peanut butter. Take a bite. You don't want some of yours? I will.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumb up. All right.